The UFC is back this weekend with the main event in the middleweight division between Cannonier and Kelvin Gastelum, a very important matchup in the top 10, really in the top 5 of the 185-pound division. We've got a 13-fight card in the UFC's return back to the UFC Apex this Saturday night. And folks, if you have not yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more UFC here on the channel. A little bit of a shorter version of the preview predictions here tonight, but let's get into this 13-fight card. So the first fight is Antonio Neto and Abdulrazak Alhassan. This fight is tough to call because you got a guy in Antonio Neto who has not fought in the octagon since 2017. The main event of the last fight night he was on was Cub Swanson versus Brian Ortega in Fresno, California, and he got knocked out by Trevin Giles. And then as for Abdulrazak Alhassan, the man was looking very good. He's coming off a win over Nico Price after UFC 228. Then he's got all the court issues, the legal issues, comes back to the octagon. He fights Munir, he loses in a somewhat competitive fight. He misses weight in that fight, but then he fights Cass Williams after that. He gets knocked out, and then you turn him around against Jacob Malkoun in a fight. Let's be honest, Abdulrazak Alhassan was supposed to beat Jacob Malkoun. He loses that fight in his fight back up at middleweight. So he's been 0-3 in his return. The Malkoun fight was a fight that he was supposed to win, and this is it for Abdulrazak Alhassan. If he cannot beat Antonio Neto, he's probably out the UFC, and the same can be said, honestly, for Antonio Neto. His only win in the UFC is against Anthony Smith, but that was all the way back in 2013 on UFC on Fuel TV, Nogueira versus Verdum, and the Ultimate Fighter 2 season finale. I mean, in Brazil, it's tough to call this fight. That fight, by the way, Antonio Neto has not won the UFC in 8 years, since June of 2013. Abdulrazak Alhassan should win this fight. Now, the Cass Williams fight, he got torched in that one. He just got knocked out cold in 30 seconds. The Lazzez fight, he did throw volume, but Lazzez was just better than him on that night. In the Malkoun fight, really, Abdulrazak Alhassan did not do anything. The reason I am taking him to be Antonio Neto is I haven't seen Neto fight in 4 years, and the Giles fight, he didn't look very good. He got knocked down in the third round, and before that, he fought Clint Hester in June of 2014. That was 2 fights ago on Swanson versus Stevens in San Antonio, Texas. Like, you can't even talk about that fight because it's been, 7 years? I'm taking Abdulrazak Alhassan based on the activity alone. And now, can Antonio Neto take this fight on the ground and try to submit Abdulrazak Alhassan? Definitely. Abdulrazak Alhassan's ground game has never been great, but I'm just banking on the activity of Razak Alhassan. I think he's going to get to Neto early, and I think he's going to KO him. That's really the only way I see Razak Alhassan winning this one. He's got 10 wins by knockout. That's all of his 10 wins are by KO. I think it's number 11 of Razak Alhassan. Hopefully gets on back on track here with the first round knockout. Fun fight now between Ignacio Bahamondes and Roosevelt Roberts. This is a fun one now being contested at 155 pounds. You got a guy in Ignacio Bahamondes coming off a very close loss to John McDessie earlier this year on the UFC on ABC 2 card. Holland and Vittori. Very close fight and a very good fight. Go watch that one back, but John McDessie barely edges out a split decision win. Before that for Bahamondes, he got a front kick knockout in the Contender Series, which scored him a UFC contract, and before that, a win over Chris Brown at LFA 90 by split decision. And for Roosevelt Roberts, recently it has not been great for him. Coming off a loss to Kevin Kroom where he got submitted by guillotine in a fight where Roosevelt was like a minus 600 favorite. He goes in there, he loses to Kroom by submission in 30 seconds. Now that fight has been overturned recently due to a positive marijuana test by Kevin Kroom, but let's be real, Kevin Kroom won that fight, and then before that for Roberts, he got caught in an armbar in the first round by old man Jim Miller. Nothing against Jim Miller, but at this point in Jim Miller's career, Roosevelt Roberts is a guy who's supposed to beat Jim Miller. Before that, he beats Brock Weaver. Brock Weaver, I mean, come on. The guy was not great in the UFC. I'm glad Brock Weaver's doing well outside the UFC now, picking up 2 straight wins, most recently in June in Mississippi. He picked up one over Cliff Wright. Happy for Brock Weaver, but he was not great in the UFC. He did go 1-2. I mean, his one win was by DQ, but Roberts beat Brock Weaver. Now the most impressive win, and then before that, picked up one by unanimous decision. Lost to Vince from Hell Pichel before that, and then picked up 2 wins to start his UFC career. The first one being against Darrell Horcher back in 2018. So Robertson's UFC career, though, has been caught in 2 submissions, and it's been his last 2 fights. It has been great against Miller and against Kroom, but don't get me wrong, Roosevelt Roberts is a very good submission. He's very good at getting submissions in his own right. The problem is he's just been caught in 2 of his own. And as for Ignacio Bahamondes, incredible striker. You saw the front kick knockout on the Contender, and you saw him trade with John McDessie earlier this year. Showed you that Ignacio Bahamondes can take a damn shot, and he is a big 155 pounder too. He's 6'3". He has a 75-inch reach. As for Roosevelt Roberts, 73-inch reach. He's 6'1" as well. So 2 really big 155 pounders. They're not going to look like lightweights, but I'm gonna take the 23-year-old in Ignacio Bahamondes. I think he's gonna outstrike Roosevelt Roberts. I think he keeps this one on the feet, and I think Bahamondes is gonna outstrike Roosevelt Roberts, giving him his 3rd straight loss, and I think Ignacio Bahamondes picks up the decision win. All right, so just a very tough fight to call now. It's between Malecki and Josiane Nunes. This one is going to be at 135. This is a tough fight to call because you've got a fighter in Malecki who, she's had 2 pro fights in MMA, the first one being a win back in 2019 over in her hometown of Sweden. She wins by rear naked choke in a fight where she did get taken down earlier in the fight, but eventually she did end up on top and winning by rear naked choke in the 2nd round. The last fight for her was a win over Ronda Macedo by unanimous decision over last year in 2020 on the Leo Oliveira card, that last card with Empty Arena in Brazil. Yeah, actually, Malecki was the first fight on that card. She was scheduled to fight Tracy Cortez, then Norma Dumont. The Cortez fight fell out, and then the Norma Dumont fight, of course, fell out as well. And then as for Josiane Nunes, she supposed to fight Zara Ferran dos Santos earlier this year. That fight fell out because Ferran could not make weight. So before that, for Nunes, fought in various promotions outside the UFC. Forza FC was her last fight promotion over in Curitiba, Brazil, picking up a big win in the main event by KO in the 2nd round. And before that, again, a lot of big wins by KO, but the problem is she's fighting fighters who 0-6 record, 1-3 record, 0-1, 3-0, 4-0, just fighting fighters who aren't as good as Josiane Nunes. So this is just such a tough fight to call because what are we going to get out of each fighter? We know Josiane Nunes brings a lot of power for a 135-pounder, and we know for Malecki, she is a very big 135-pounder as well. 74-inch reach for her. Josiane Nunes is 5'2", Malecki is 5'9", so it's going to be such a weird fight. I'm going to take Malecki just because of her reach advantage. I think she's going to be able to strike from distance in this one. I think she's going to be able to keep her distance. I think she's going to be able to outstrike Josiane Nunes on the outside. And that's why I'm going to go with Malecki to win this one. I'm not confident at all at this one, but I'm going to go with Malecki to win this one by unanimous decision. Now we've got Sasha Palatnikov and Ramiz Brahimaj at the welterweight division. For Sasha Palatnikov's last fight was a loss to Impa Kasanganay. Kasanganay looked very good in that one in his first fight at welterweight. Kasanganay was really piecing them together on the feet, and then when that fight did hit the mat, for a very short second, Kasanganay locks in a rear naked choke, no hooks in at all, and just puts away Sasha Palatnikov early in that 2nd round. And before that, for Sasha, he picks up a win over Luis Cosi. It's a fight that he's losing early on. He comes back in the 3rd round. He knocks out Luis Cosi. He's definitely had the better gas take in that one, and really just wore out Luis Cosi. Cosi threw himself out with a bunch of punches earlier in the fight. And of course, Sasha Palatnikov came back and ended up winning that one. Palatnikov, before the UFC fought UAE Warriors, you saw him match up against Munir Lazzez back in 2019. Lazzez stopped him with strikes in the 1st round. As for Ramiz Brahimaj, his last fight was not great. Max Griffin is known for that big ear injury that Ramiz Brahimaj does get. It's pretty disgusting. His ear just kind of tears from the face. It's disgusting. If you want to see it, it's out there. And then before that, for Brahimaj, he's going on like a 50-50 streak in LFA. He's having competitive fights, don't get me wrong, in LFA. But his last fight was a win over Carlos Martinez by an arm triangle choke in 2019. He gets signed to the UFC. He's supposed to fight Miguel Baez on the contender. Then he's supposed to fight Takashi Sato. Brahimaj tested positive for the virus, and eventually they scheduled him against Max Griffin in November, which he did lose. I'm going to take Sasha Palatnikov, though, to beat Ramiz Brahimaj. I think Palatnikov's the all-around better fighter. I think his gas tank's going to be a big factor in this one, even though we did see Brahimaj doing solid in the 3rd round against Griffin. Don't get me wrong, he was losing that fight in the 3rd round, but he was hanging in there. I think Palatnikov, though, all-around, has got the better gas tank. I think if we do see this one hit the mat, you will see Brahimaj with the advantage, but I think Sasha keeps this one standing. I think he will outstrike Ramiz Brahimaj, and eventually, I think he's going to tire him out. So I'm going to go with the Sasha Palatnikov late 2nd round TKO of Ramiz Brahimaj. I think he picks up the win and improves to 2-1 in the UFC. Now we've got Brian Kelleher and Domingo Pilarte. For Domingo Pilarte, his last fight was a while ago. It was in Houston on the Jones-Reyes card. He gets caught with a huge overhand right by Jerry Newson. Newson puts him out 38 seconds into that fight. Ball game. Newson wins the fight in Texas. Joe Rogan goes pretty wild for that knockdown. And then before that, for Pilarte, he loses to Felipe Colares by split decision in 2019. And then before that, he beats Vince Morales by rear naked choke on the contender. Most recently, though, you did see Morales pick up a very big win over Draco Rodriguez on that Lewis and Gone card over in Houston as well. And for Brian Kelleher, of course, he's been in the UFC for a very long time, making his UFC debut back at UFC 212 in Rio de Janeiro on the Aldo Holloway card, where he did beat Julio Arce. But since then, he's been doing pretty solid. Kelleher after losing to Montel Jackson, beat Ode Osborne, which is a pretty good win. I know Osborne just got flying knee in the face against Manel Cape, but still, Ode Osborne, solid fighter. After that, Kelleher beats Hunter Azure, loses to Cody Stamann, beats Ray Rodriguez, and then most recently losing to Ricky Simone in that main card of UFC 258, burns Usman. Kelleher, though, very solid on the feet, very solid on the ground as well. And for Pilarte, again, we haven't seen the best, I don't think, out of Pilarte so far in the UFC. You saw that fight most recently against Jerry Newsom, where he just gets flatlined in that one. And you see the Colares fight, where he loses a very close decision. Pilarte's probably going to have to take this one on the mat, but you have seen Brian Kelleher in the past do pretty well on the ground. But we have seen Kelleher get out-grappled by good jiu-jitsu players and against good wrestlers as well. The fight that does come to mind is the Cody Stamann fight, because Brian Kelleher, good grappler. You saw him submit Ode Osborne, who I hold in very high regard on the ground, but Kelleher submitted Ode Osborne with a guillotine choke. He submitted Ray Rodriguez too at that guillotine that he always does seem to go to. But then you got to fight like the Cody Stamann fight. Kelleher uses the guillotine to defend the takedowns. He can't get it. Stamann keeps taking him down at will, and then Kelleher ends up losing that fight by decision. Kind of the same thing with the Simone fight, but Simone, of course, was striking with him as well, then going back to his grappling and so forth. But I think this is a fight Kelleher is going to win. It seems like sort of a step down after you're fighting guys like Stamann, like Ricky Simone, like Ode Osborne, like John Lineker and Renan Barão. I like Brian Kelleher to beat Domingo Pilarte in this one. I think he keeps his standing. I think he outstrikes Pilarte. And I've got Brian Kelleher to beat him by decision. I wouldn't be surprised though if Kelleher does lock in a guillotine. If Pilarte does decide to shoot, Kelleher can jump on that pretty quickly and submit him. But for now, I'm going to go with Kelleher to win this one by decision. Now we've got Luis Saldana and Austin Lingo. Two fighters coming off wins in the UFC, both by unanimous decision. You got the Saldana win over Jordan Griffin by unanimous decision on UFC on ABC 2, and then for Lingo, you got that win over Jacob Kilburn on UFC on ABC 1, back on Fight Island on the Holloway Cater card. Jacob Kilburn, unfortunately, no longer in UFC, and for Saldana, fought a solid fighter in Jordan Griffin, who has been around the UFC for a very long time, who is on kind of a losing skid right now, but Saldana picked up a good win over him. Lingo made his way to the UFC after winning an LFA. He was on a big fight-winning streak over an LFA, then he comes in, loses to Youssef Zalal by unanimous decision, then of course gets the Kilburn fight. And as for Saldana, he's fighting in various promotions outside the UFC, wins by rear naked choke in LFA, and then picks up a win over the Ultimate Fighter's own Vincent Murdoch. He front kicks Vincent Murdoch on the Contender, and yeah, he picks up his UFC contract through that fight. Vince Murdoch obviously just losing recently on the Ultimate Fighter to Brady Highstand. I don't know if they're going to give like Murdoch a shot in the UFC. Are they going to give like any of these guys who didn't win on the Ultimate Fighter a shot? Because next week apparently is the Ultimate Fighter finale card, but there's only right now the two Ultimate Fighter fights, because Brian Battle is supposed to fight the winner of the other middleweight fight, and then you got Ricky versus Brady. I don't know what they're doing with the Ultimate Fighter. I would like a finale show. No, I know no one's really watching this Ultimate Fighter season. I am, but whatever. Saldana beats Vince Murdoch, and then he picks up the win over Jordan Griffin. I like Saldana to beat Austin Lingo. I really like the stand-up game of Saldana in this one. Lingo's a solid striker as well, who can get finishes on the feet, and same on the ground. Same with Saldana, too. We have seen Saldana get finishes off his back on the ground, but I do like Luis Saldana all around in this one. I like his striking over Lingo. There's a lot of good kicks in his fighting style, and of course, if the fight does end up on the mat, Saldana is very good down there as well. I like Luis Saldana to beat Austin Lingo. I think he beats him by decision. Now we've got William Knight and Fabio Cherant, two fighters who just lost their last fight. I mean, for Fabio Cherant, he gets taken down early in his fighting against Alonzo Menafield, holds on to the guillotine. He ends up getting Von Flute in the first round, UFC 260, Miocic Ngannou 2. In his UFC debut, I mean, not what you really wanted to see. Didn't really want to get Von Flute by Alonzo Menafield. You got the LFA light heavyweight champion coming in. He gets submitted real easy. And oh yeah, Fabio Cherant is a very good grappler, but he comes in and gets submitted by Alonzo Menafield. And then for Will Knight, I mean, that was, I wouldn't say worst case scenario, but he gets taken down at will by Da Un Jung. He gets ground and pounded to hell against the Iron Turtle in Da Un Jung back earlier this year on the UFC on ABC 2 card. And it wasn't a good fight for Will Knight at all. He's coming off that win over Alexa Kammer, where he looked very good in that one, uses ground and pound very well, outstruck Kammer, out-grappled him, and then he coming off that one before that on the Contender Series as well, he loses to Da Un Jung, where he gets out-grappled, and for Fabio Cherant, hey, I mean, yes, he did get out-grappled in the Menafield fight. He holds on the guillotine, he gets subbed with a Von Flue, but this is a guy in Fabio Cherant who is very good at grappling, and yes, MMA math, okay, Fabio Cherant lost to Alexa Kammer, William Knight beat Alexa Kammer. Does that mean William Knight 100% is going to beat Fabio Cherant? No, it doesn't, but there are pathways to victory for William Knight in this one. I think if Knight honestly improves his wrestling in this one, because Will Knight striking with Da Un Jung? Okay, there wasn't many opportunities for Knight to put a finish on Da Un Jung on the feet, but when they were on the feet, Knight didn't look horrible. And obviously the one big weakness in Will Knight's game that we did see in the Da Un Jung fight was his grappling and what it was his wrestling. So you got to know that that's all William Knight is training for in this fight, because you know a guy in Fabio Cherant really doesn't want to strike with him. Cherant wants to take this fight to the ground. So I think Will Knight's been preparing for this. I sure hope he is, because I'm going to pick William Knight to beat Fabio Cherant. I think it's a fight Knight should win. He should be able to out-control Fabio Cherant in this one. He should be able to dictate where this fight is going, and obviously Will Knight is going to want this fight on the feet. So that being said, I think Will Knight should be able to outstrike Fabio Cherant. I think he might be able to even put a finish on him. I'm going to go Will Knight second round TKO on this one. I think he's going to be able to get this one done. I think if Cherant can't get that takedown early, if Cherant cannot get this one to the mat early, Knight's going to have a very good night. So I'm going to go, no pun intended, I think William Knight is going to beat Fabio Cherant. I think he beats him by TKO in the second round. Eventually the striking is going to catch up to Cherant, and Knight will pick up his second win in the UFC. Very good fight now between Trevin 5-Star Jones and Mana Martinez. And for Mana Martinez, last win was a win over Jose Johnson on Fury FC, defending his Fury championship. But the fight I want to talk about is Mana Martinez beating Ricky Tercios by KO early in the first round for the Fury FC championship. Ricky Tercios is a guy who's fighting for the Ultimate Fighter next week, and Mana Martinez finished him within 3 minutes. That is huge. And for Martinez, he did get a shot in the Contender Series. He lost to Draco Rodriguez. He got submitted by a triangle choke. Now, is that what you really want to see out of Mana Martinez coming to the UFC? Not exactly, considering Rodriguez is 0-2 in the UFC, getting knocked out by Ayman Zahabi and losing not the most entertaining fight against Vince Morales. I'll put it that way. So, for Martinez, though, he's come back. He's picked up 2 wins, defending his championship. Knockout 1 minute into his fight against Casey Jones to defend the Fury Championship, and then after that, KOing Jose Johnson 30 seconds for that same Bantamweight Championship. So on a good roll coming in the UFC, but he's taken on a guy in Trevin 5-Star Jones who has been so tremendous so far in the UFC. I mean, I can't talk, I've been talking so highly of Trevin Jones after that Timur Valiev fight, and I don't care if that's a no contest technically on his record. Trevin 5-Star Jones won that fight. I don't care that I got overturned due to marijuana. That does not matter. Jones won that fight, and then you got his most recent fight, knocking out Mario Bautista in the second round early with a very nice uppercut, putting him down and finishing him on the ground via TKO. Trevin 5-Star Jones has got power on the feet. He's got the submission skills if he needs it as well. This man is currently on a roll. Do not let the 13-6 record fool you. Trevin Jones is one of the better bantamweights on the planet. And I'm not saying he's a top 15 guy, but Trevin Jones is on his way. He is 31 years old, fighting out of Guam, but Jones is the problem in this division. You see how well Valiev's fighting currently. I mean, Timur Valiev's coming out there. He's beating guys such as Hani Barcelos and Martin Day. But Trevin 5-Star Jones is an incredible fighter. I like Mana Martinez. I like the style he does bring. I like the aggressiveness he does bring on the feet. This one should be fun on the feet because both these guys are going to bring it. They are going to throw a lot of volume. It should be a banger. Trevin Jones also, don't underrate the ground game. I think he can get it done down there if he does need to. Sort of like what Draco Rodriguez did to Mana Martinez. But I like Jones to win this one on the feet. I like him on the ground as well. I think Jones ends up winning this fight. I think he actually will stop Mana Martinez. I think he puts him away with a second round TKO. Should be an absolute banger of a fight. Maybe it will even win fight of the night. I don't know. It should be a good one, though. Absolute banger at flyweight. Brandon Royval and Alexandre Pantoja. An incredible fight and a huge one for Pantoja. I know he did lose to Askar Askarov 2 fights ago, but this is a guy in Alexandre Pantoja who owns 2 wins over the current champion in Brandon Moreno. The first one being on the Ultimate Fighter, so it's technically an amateur fight, but come on. It was a pro fight between 2 pro fighters, but the Ultimate Fighter is weird. It was a good fight, though. Pantoja submits Brandon Moreno by rear naked choke on the Ultimate Fighter, and then when they get in the UFC, Pantoja beats him on the Maya Usman card in Santiago, Chile by unanimous decision. He gets the job done in that fight via unanimous decision. Pretty dominant performance for Pantoja, 30-26s and a 30-27 on the board for him. And then after that, picks up a couple wins, runs into Divison Figueiredo, the former champion. He loses, beats Matt Chanel by KO, loses to Askar Askarov, who should be next for Brandon Moreno. I don't think they go Divison Figueiredo Moreno 3, at least they shouldn't. And then Pantoja beats Manel Kopp in a fight where Kopp didn't do anything. So we didn't really get much out of Pantoja in that one. What we got out of him in the Kopp fight was like, okay, he's calm, he's patient. I mean, okay, it wasn't a good fight. because Kopp wasn't doing anything. Pantoja was picking his shots at the right time. He was outstriking Manel Kopp. He did what he needed to do to win the fight. He didn't finish him by any means, but Pantoja did what he needed to do to win that one. Pantoja's also got a very good ground game as well. Tremendous submissions off his back. Tremendous BJJ player in Pantoja. And as for Royval, I'm big on Brandon Royval as well. I know his last fight, he did lose to Brandon Moreno, but that was a fight where Brandon Royval was in that one. Those two were trading. I know Moreno ended up getting the takedown, and then Royval ended up messing up his shoulder. I do believe he dislocated, if I'm not mistaken on that, when he popped it back into place right after the fight ended. But Royval lost that one. It will say due to punches with the second left in the round, but really it was the injury to the shoulder of Brandon Royval that did end the fight for him. And in a fight that he was very competitive with the current champion. Before that for Royval, comes in the UFC, beats Tim Elliott right off the bat by arm triangle choke, wins fight of the night, and then after that, beats Kai Kara France in UFC 253, wins fight of the night as well, submits Kai Kara France by guillotine as well. Royval is a crazy style on the feet. He's going to throw a lot of volume, and it's going to be a wild fight with him and Pantoja, because Pantoja's going to do the same. In the ground game, say what you want, Alexandre Pantoja, tremendous BJJ, but Brandon Royval can work on the ground as well. I am so excited for this fight. These two are so evenly matched. The winner of this fight will most likely not fight for the championship, but the winner of this fight should be straight into a title eliminator right after. So, or maybe if Pantoja wins, he might get a shot, considering he has beat Moreno twice already. But I'm going Brandon Royval. I don't think Alexandre Pantoja is winning this one. I like Royval on the feet against Pantoja, and yes, I know Alexandre Pantoja has beat some of the best on the feet in the past. That TKO win over Wilson Heist does stand out, but Royval, the volume you saw in the Kai Kara France fight, catches Kai Kara France multiple times in that fight, and then eventually submits him with the guillotine, locks in the guillotine, goes on his back and finishes him. Incredible finish for Royval. And the Moreno fight, he was competitive in that one until he did mess up his shoulder. I like Brandon Royval to edge out a very close decision against Alexandre Pantoja. I think it's a close one. That's why I'm not going to go with the finish. I think these two are so evenly matched, but Brandon Royval is going to pick up his second career decision win. I think he beats Pantoja. Should be an exciting one, though. Now we have got Vince from Hell Pichel and Austin Hubbard right now in the lightweight division. We're going to start first here with Austin Hubbard. Last fight is a victory over Dakota Bush, and okay, it was Dakota Bush's first fight in the UFC. He's supposed to fight Nathan Levy, I do believe. Yeah, Levy ended up pulling out that fight. So we got Dakota Bush. Hubbard beats Bush on short notice. Sure. Before that, loses to Joe Selecki, a tremendous jiu-jitsu player. Selecki catches him with a rear naked, and Munoz Edgar beats him in August. And before that, he beat Max Roskopf, who Roskopf quit on the stool after the second round. It's a TKO win for Hubbard, technically. Yeah, I mean, was it exhaustion by Max Roskopf? Who knows? Roskopf most recently, of course, got cut by the UFC, but just picked up a pretty big win over in Cage Warriors in his return, so good for Max Roskopf. But Hubbard before that loses to Marco Madsen, who Madsen we're going to talk about in a couple minutes here. Madsen's a tremendous wrestler. Hubbard, nothing you can do about that loss right there. Madsen's still undefeated too, and then comes in the UFC, picks up a loss, and then picks up a win in the second fight as well. The first fight being against Davey Ramos on the Dos Anjos and Lee card over in Rochester, New York. Hubbard was the former LFA lightweight champion before heading on over to the Ultimate Proving Ground. Currently with a record of 13-5, he's taking on a guy in Vince Pichel, who's on a 2-fight winning streak. Big wins over Roosevelt Roberts by unanimous decision over in Minnesota. Got 29-28 across the board in that one, and then he put a pretty big beating on Jim Miller. UFC 252, Miocic and Cormier 3. Vince Pichel gets 29-28 on the board for that one, and then 110-8 at 29-27 against Jim Miller. His one loss in the UFC, or his two losses in the UFC, one loss recently, is the Gregor Gillespie fight under Rivera and Moraes in New York. He gets submitted by an arm triangle in the second round of that one. Before that, his other loss is all the way back on the Team Carwin versus Team Nelson finale card for the Ultimate Fighter back in December of 2012. And then, of course, Pichel did find the Ultimate Fighter as well. That was on the Ultimate Fighter live season, though. He fought Ala Iaquinta in his fourth fight, ended up losing that one by unanimous decision. And, of course, Iaquinta did get submitted by Michael Chiesa in the final of that card. I think Vince Pichel beats Austin Hubbard. I think he's the better striker. I think that's where this fight does end up taking place. I think Pichel all around is a better striker than Hubbard. I've seen Pichel pick up wins over guys such as Joaquim Silva, Roosevelt Roberts, and Jim Miller. And as for Austin Hubbard, his wins in the UFC are Dakota Bush, who is unproven. He hasn't won yet in the UFC. He's, I think, going to fight Rong Zhu, if I'm not mistaken, next. Max Roskopf, who was out of the UFC in one fight, now fighting in Cage Warriors. And then a couple other guys who are out of the UFC as well, or didn't win a single fight in the UFC. I'm taking Pichel off experience alone. I think he's a way better striker. I wouldn't say way better, but I think he's an all-around better striker than Austin Hubbard. Again, I like the experience out of Vince Pichel. He's coming into this fight with a record of 13 wins and 2 losses. He is 38, so he is getting up there in age, but I like the experience out of Vince Pichel. I think he beats Austin Hubbard, and I think he gets it done by unanimous decision. 2 heavyweights now on the main card. It will be Chase Sherman and Parker Porter. 2 heavyweights coming off. Well, actually, no. Sherman did lose the last fight. But Sherman got a finish on the Ike Villanueva fight, and then Parker Porter beat Josh Parisian in his last one. Chase Sherman got a big co-main event spot against Andrei Arlovsky. He wins around that fight against Arlovsky, but Arlovsky doing what he does, seemingly, like against younger prospects. He beats Chase Sherman by unanimous decision. A good win for Arlovsky in a fight where, it wasn't entertaining. It was a fight. It was a fight that happened. It wasn't overly exciting, but Sherman looked very good in his first fight back in the UFC. He got cut after losing to Augusto Sakai, and we'll talk about his run that he went on in the UFC, his first run, which he fought some big names. But he comes back, he picks up 3 wins over in island fights, and then he beats Ike Villanueva with a big elbow in the second round on the Smith Teixeira card to open up that weird Wednesday card in Jacksonville, right when the pandemic was just starting. And then, of course, he got the Arlovsky fight, and he lost. Of course, you know, Rodrigo Nascimento wants to fight Chase Sherman. Sherman keeps saying that this guy's like a crush on me or something, because Nascimento keeps calling out Chase Sherman. I don't know what's up with that whole situation, but Sherman's first run in the UFC was very tough. I mean, he comes in, okay, he does lose to Justin Ledet, which, do you want to see that? No, but he loses to Walt Harris. He fights Rashad Coulter, he beats him, wins another fight, then loses to Shamil Abdurakhimov, loses to Justin Willis, and then loses to Augusto Sakai. He's fighting guys, a ranked fighter in Harris, a ranked fighter in Abdurakhimov, a ranked fighter at the time in Augusto Sakai, or not at the time, but a ranked fighter now in Augusto Sakai, and a ranked fighter back then in Justin Willis. It was just a tough draw for Sherman. He comes back, beats Villanueva, and takes on a former champion in Andrei Arlovsky, which he does lose. For Parker Porter, I give him Chris Daukaus off the bat. 2 guys who are making their UFC debut. Daukaus catches Porter early in that first round, or late in that first round of UFC 252, and puts him away in that first round. Parker Porter, I guess, most known for fighting guys such as John Jones and Gabriel Gonzaga outside the UFC. He lost both of those fights, got KO'd by John Jones in 36 seconds in Massachusetts in 2008, and then lost to Gabriel Gonzaga in 2011 on the main event of that card in Connecticut for the Reality Heavyweight Championship. Okay, then he fought in Bellator, lost one fight, and lost 1 fight as well. I'm taking Chase Sherman to beat Parker Porter. Chase Sherman's the better striker. It's that simple. This fight's probably not ending up on the mat. Parker Porter in the Josh Parisian fight, again, one of those heavyweight fights where it wasn't the best fight. It's a fight that happened. Porter outstruck Parisian in that one. It was a pretty dominant performance for Porter, but was it all that exciting? Not really. It was just a dominant performance for Porter. There's nothing else you can say about it. But Sherman in his last fight, yes, he did lose to Arlovsky, but that's a former champion Arlovsky that's been battle-tested. And before that, beating Ike Villanueva in a fight that he really showed how good his striking really is after he did come back from fighting in Bare Knuckle FC. I like Chase Sherman's boxing in this one. I think he's the better striker out of him and Parker Porter, and I think Chase Sherman is going to finish Parker Porter. I think he gets a knockout in the first round. Should be a banger, nothing less, but I think Sherman gets it done in the first round. So your co-main event of the evening is Clay Guida and Mark Madsen. Madsen, you know, the former silver medalist for Denmark in the Rio Olympics back in 2016. Currently undefeated in MMA. He is 10-0. And then you got Clay Guida, which, I mean, you got to give all the respect in the world to Clay Guida. He's still fighting young guys, man. He's 36-20 in his career. He's fought 56 times. And he's going out there and he's going to fight Mark Madsen. Clay Guida, I just believe, signed a 4-fight deal with the UFC. He is back, and he is going to be back for a while. Or his first fight of that 4-fight contract was the win over Michael Johnson. I guess we will start there. Michael Johnson, I thought, was going to beat Clay Guida. Did not go his way in that one. Guida wins every single minute, every single second, and every single round of that fight. Michael Johnson did not look good in that one, and Clay Guida got the job done. It was weird because he was coming off the fight against Bobby Green, where he did lose. Bobby Green won that fight. One of those fights where Bobby Green won every single round. In the Jim Miller fight, well, I mean, Guida gets rocked, Miller gets rocked, then Guida shoots in for a takedown, Miller locks in the guillotine, Herb Dean's late on the stoppage, and then, yeah, Jim Miller wins the fight in the co-main event in Newark, New Jersey. That all happened in 60 seconds. It's a fun 60 seconds on the Covington Lawler card. And then before that, Clay Guida beat, oh yeah, BJ Penn in Brazil. okay. Loses to Charles Oliveira before that, the current champ in Illinois, and then before that, you got a win over Joe Lazo, and yeah, we're getting all the way back into 2016, where he's losing to guys such as Brian Ortega. I mean, just for reference, Clay Guida made his UFC debut all the way back at UFC 64. The main event of that one was where Anderson Silva won the world championship against Rich Franklin. So just think about how long ago that was. He made his Strikeforce debut against Josh Thompson back in San Jose, California in a 5-round war for the Strikeforce championship on Shamrock versus Gracie. That would be Frank Shamrock versus Cesar Gracie. Frank Shamrock winning that one, by the way, by KO 20 seconds into that fight. But I said all of that by Clay Guida. He's been fighting professionally since 2003. You're fighting a guy in Mark Madsen who has really been in no trouble so far in his UFC career. He's been tremendous so far. I mean, the Austin Hubbard fight, UFC 248, Madsen wins that one 29-28. So, again, he won that fight. Was he in all that much trouble, though? No, he won that fight 2-1. He looked very good his first fight in the UFC over in Copenhagen on the Hermanson Cannonier card. You know what you're gonna get out of Mark Madsen. The tremendous wrestling, the tremendous upper body throws. Hey, the man was a silver medalist in Greco-Roman for a damn reason. He's a tremendous wrestler, incredible pace. You know that's what he's going to have. His submissions are getting there as well. Picked up a win by rear naked choke in Olympian Fight Night in Copenhagen, Denmark, his first fight, his last fight before heading to the UFC. Mark Madsen should beat Clay Guida. I don't think Guida really stands a chance in this one. Madsen, you see him as the younger fighter. He is 36, and he's only had, 10 pro fights? Clay Guida's 39, and he's had 56 pro fights. I'm taking the guy who hasn't taken really all that much damage in the octagon. I'm taking Mark Madsen to out-wrestle Clay Guida. I think he's going to out-grind Guida. He's got the better gas tank, even though Guida is always going to be in a fight. I mean, don't get me wrong. Clay Guida is always going to be pressing forward in his fights, but this is a very old Clay Guida. He's 39 years old, and yeah, he's still got 2 more fights left in the UFC at the very least after this one, but I like Mark Madsen to win this one. I think he just out-grapples Guida. I think he's going to eventually put a TKO finish against Guida on in this one. I think eventually using his takedowns, and in the 3rd round, I think he's eventually going to stop Guida via punches when you know the outcome of the fight is going to be a Mark Madsen win. I think he ends up getting that stoppage, though, late in the 3rd. Give me Mark Madsen to improve to 11-0 professionally, 3-0 in the UFC with a 3rd round TKO win over the legend in the Carpenter, Clay Guida. It is time for the main event of the evening. We have got the Killer Gorilla in Jared Cannonier taking on the former Ultimate Fighter winner in Kelvin Gastelum. Isn't it amazing that Kelvin Gastelum's only 29 years old? Like, I feel like I've been watching this guy fight for forever. I'm rewatching the Ultimate Fighter season with Jones and Sonnen, by the way, all the way back in 2013. I'm rewatching that season right now. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Gastelum's only 29 years old. And Jared Cannonier coming in this fight, he's looked pretty good at middleweight so far. He was 3-0, and then he runs into the guy who, is about to fight for the world championship in Robert Whittaker. Like, there's nothing bad in losing that fight if you're Jared Cannonier to Whittaker. And for Kelvin Gastelum, who was his last fight? It was Robert Whittaker as well. And this is a guy in Whittaker who is determined to fight for the title. He beat Darren Till, he beat Jared Cannonier, and he beat Kelvin Gastelum. 3 guys who were all in the top 10 of the division. And this is a good one. It was originally supposed to be Jared Cannonier and Paulo Costa, but Borrachinha had to pull out that fight. And now Borrachinha is going to be fighting Marvin Vettori, which is kind of a banger. I'm really excited for that fight. But yeah, this is going to be Gastelum instead. The second time Kelvin Gastelum has replaced Paulo Costa, because if you remember, Costa was supposed to fight Robert Whittaker. Gastelum stepped in on short notice, and now he's going to take on Jared Cannonier. This is a good one. I mean, Kelvin Gastelum has been fighting the UFC again since that Jones-Sonnen season, The Ultimate Fighter. He comes in and beats Uriah Hall by split decision, goes on a big winning streak, loses to Tyron Woodley, beats Nate Marquardt, loses to Neil Magny, beats Johnny Hendricks, beats Tim Kennedy, beats Vitor Belfort, loses to Chris Weidman, beats Michael Bisping, beats Jacare, gets the title shot against Israel Adesanya, loses a very close fight, but loses it by unanimous decision in an incredible fight, loses to Darren Till by split decision, loses to Jack Hermanson in a fight where he gets caught with a heel hook, beats Ian Heinisch by unanimous decision, and then takes on Bobby Knuckles in a fight where, I mean, that's a tough fight for Kelvin Gastelum. Robert Whittaker is at the best maybe we've ever seen him, and Whittaker beats him by unanimous decision, 50-45, 5 rounds to nothing. Gastelum coming in this fight with a record of 16 wins and 7 losses. Okay, I'm not giving my prediction just yet, but I just hope if Gastelum loses this fight, I beg the UFC, do not cut Kelvin Gastelum. This guy is a top 10 fighter. He fights the best of the best. Look at his last fights. I mean, just hear him. Vitor Belfort, former champion. Chris Weidman, former champion. Michael Bisping, former champion. Jacare Souza, one of the greatest of all time. He just retired. have fun with retirement, Jacare, but tremendous fighter. Israel Adesanya, champion. Darren Till, former title challenger. Jack Hermanson, I mean, staple of the top 5 of the middleweight division. Ian Heinisch, okay, I mean, it's a fight that Gastelum's supposed to win. He wins. And then Robert Whittaker, former champion. And then now he's going to take on a guy in Cannonier who's in the top 5. There's no easy fights for Kelvin Gastelum. There's just not. He hasn't had an easy fight since really before the Ultimate Fighter. Once you win the Ultimate Fighter, you are always going to get tough fights, and that's the path Kelvin Gastelum was on. I mean, he took on Uriah Hall, he fights Rick Story, beats Ellenberg, they give him Tyron Woodley, like in his, 5th fight in the UFC, then he has to fight Marquardt, then Magny, then Hendricks. I mean, just so many good fighters Gastelum has fought, but Jared Cannonier is so damn good. The power of Jared Cannonier is crazy. And yes, did he lose to Robert Whittaker? Sure, but late in that 3rd round, people do forget, Jared Cannonier was coming back. He was come back late in that 3rd round. Yes, he does get kicked in that head with that tremendous combination by Robert Whittaker. I mean, you can't get any better than that 3-strike combo by Whittaker, which he does sit down Jared Cannonier with that combo that finished with the head kick. But Cannonier, towards the end of that 3rd round, is stunning Robert Whittaker, and he is coming back. So the cardio for Jared Cannonier, very underrated. If that fight was 5 rounds, maybe Jared Cannonier does come back, and maybe he does put a beating. I wouldn't say beating, but maybe he does put some more pressure on Robert Whittaker. That would have been a fun fight through 5. So I'm not saying that Kelvin Gastelum automatically is a better gas tank than Jared Cannonier, because we've seen Gastelum in these 5-round wars in the past, but Cannonier, man, he's got power throughout the entire fight. When you saw what he did to Jack Hermanson, he went to Denmark, he beats Jack Hermanson, he sits him down in the 2nd round, he's beating him in the 1st round too. Tremendous performance for Cannonier. He beats Anderson Silva just because of the leg kicks, how much force Cannonier has got behind those leg kicks. In the David Branch fight, he puts him out 30 seconds into the 2nd round as well. And I mean, if you want to talk about Cannonier's run at light heavyweight, I don't think that's entirely fair to talk about it, because 1, he was at light heavyweight, it wasn't his weight class, and listen to the guys he was fighting. His 3 losses at light heavyweight, his 3 losses at light heavyweight were Glover Teixeira, about to fight for a world championship. Jan Blachowicz is the world champion, and Dominic Reyes, a guy who a lot of people thought beat John Jones. Those were his 3 losses at light heavyweight. So Jared Cannonier is one of the best of the best. And now he's at middleweight, and he's in the top 5. Jared Cannonier and Kelvin Gastelum, you want your final prediction? I'm going with Jared Cannonier. I think he beats Kelvin Gastelum. The problem is for Cannonier, though, Gastelum is so tough to stop. He's never been finished with strikes. He's been submitted a couple times. He got submitted by Chris Weidman with an arm triangle, and he got submitted by Jack Hermanson. Can Cannonier finish Kelvin Gastelum? I don't know if he can. Because if you rewatch Gastelum and Adesanya's throwing every single thing he's got in the Gastelum fight, and Kelvin stays in the fight. Same with Whittaker. Whittaker was trying to put Gastelum away. He couldn't. So I think Cannonier wins a decision, and I don't think that's like the pick that a lot of people are expecting, because Jared Cannonier fight, you're thinking he's going to finish Gastelum. I don't know if he can get Kelvin out of there. I think Kelvin Gastelum's going to win rounds in this fight. I think this is going to be a competitive fight. I don't, like, going into the 5th round, I think this fight might be 2-2. Like, I think this is going to be such a close fight. Gastelum and Jared Cannonier match up so well together. This is a perfect fight for the weight class. It really is, because Gastelum does bring the wrestling too, and we're going to see Jared Cannonier's wrestling defense too. You know, we did see in the Hermanson fight, he did fight off those takedowns very well. We will see it again here in the Kelvin fight, but Kelvin's not afraid to strike with Jared Cannonier as well, because Kelvin Gastelum can take a shot. I've seen it before. I saw in the Whittaker fight. I saw in the Adesanya fight. I've seen the Darren Till fight. I saw in the Chris Weidman fight too, honestly. And I saw Kelvin Gastelum put down Chris Weidman in that fight too, and I've seen him knock out Vitor Belfort too. So it's a competitive fight. I like Jared Cannonier ever so slightly, though. I think he will get a decision win. But I mean, this is a fight where I'm saying 48-47 Jared Cannonier. I think maybe I can't even pick the rounds, but I think Cannonier probably wins 3-2, maybe 4-1. But this is a close fight. Kelvin Gastelum's going to win a round in this fight. This isn't going to be like the Whittaker fight where he loses every single round, where Gastelum's competitive, but he loses every single round in that fight. That was the Whittaker fight. It's not going to be like that here against Jared Cannonier. I mean, that's just showing you how good Robert Whittaker is. He's on a different level. Him and Adesanya are currently on a different level in this division, striking-wise. Gastelum is going to bring it to Jared Cannonier. Cannonier is going to bring it to Gastelum. These two are going to throw, and I think they're going to throw for 25 minutes. I think that's how it goes. So I just don't think Kelvin Gastelum can finish, or Jared Cannonier can finish Kelvin Gastelum. Can Gastelum finish Cannonier? Potentially, yeah. But Jared Cannonier has never been finished at 185. I think Jared Cannonier is a whole different fighter at 185. I don't want to compare him at 205 to 185. It's just 205 wasn't his weight class. You look at Jared Cannonier now, you're like, why wasn't this guy fighting at 185 beforehand? This guy is jacked at 185. He looks great at 185. And I think he beats Kelvin Gastelum. I think he gets it done by decision, but it should be a tremendous fight. And from here, I mean, where do you go with Jared Cannonier? Because you saw Alhassan call out Cannonier earlier, which is weird. You don't usually see the champion calling out contenders, but you saw Adesanya call out Cannonier after he did beat Paulo Costa, saying that, hey, if Cannonier can beat Whitaker, he'll get the title shot. He didn't beat Whitaker, but with the win over Gastelum, he's right back in it for the championship, because you're looking at the division, you're seeing Whitaker and Adesanya most likely are fighting, I would say probably either January or February of 2022. You got Costa fighting Vettori. The winner of that fight is probably not fighting for the championship. Definitely not Vettori, since he's lost twice to Adesanya. Costa probably won't get it off of one win. Yeah, Brunson and Till, which maybe Till gets a title shot. I don't think he should, but maybe Till gets a title shot just because he is Darren Till. I don't think it happens, though. I think the winner of Darren Till and Derek Brunson, I think it sets up pretty nicely. The winner of that fight fights the winner of Vettori and Paulo Costa, most likely, right? And I don't know what you do with Jack Hermanson. Maybe you do Hermanson versus maybe the winner of Sean Strickland and Luke Rockhold. I don't know. Or maybe you do Hermanson and Cannonier again, or Gastelum. I do not know, but he's fought both of those guys. I don't know where you go with Jack Hermanson, but I think that's the easy matchups right there. You do Till, Brunson winner fights Vettori Costa winner. Winner of that 4-man tournament gets a title shot. I think Cannonier probably gets a title shot after this too, honestly. He's number 3 right now. And I think, yeah, maybe Hermanson sits and waits for the winner of Strickland and Luke Rockhold, right? Or maybe they do Uriah Hall, Jack Hermanson. I don't know, but I'm going to go Jared Cannonier. I think he wins this fight. And honestly, yeah, I do think Jared Cannonier will get the winner of Israel Adesanya and Robert Whitaker. And as for Kelvin Gastelum, if he wins this fight, I think he probably gets the winner. Maybe, okay, I'll say he gets the winner of Till and Brunson. I think that's probably where you go with Gastelum. I don't think he will get the winner of Costa Vettori. Maybe he would, but I think they'd probably go a little bit lower for Gastelum. Probably the winner of the fight between Brunson and Till. But either way, you're going to see a contender right here coming out this fight at 185. I think it, though, will be Jared Cannonier winning this fight and then most likely fighting for the World Championship right after this. So, folks, thank y'all for watching this UFC preview and predictions. The main event, of course, Kelvin Gastelum and Jared Cannonier. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. We do one of these every single week for UFC. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video, and also make sure to comment if you did disagree with any of my picks. So again, folks, thank y'all for watching, and Mamba forever.